Hey everyone, welcome to Enhanced Physical Therapy. My name is Melissa, and today we're going to be going over cervical mobility. It is very common to experience tightness, stiffness within the cervical spine, but it's not often an area that we like to isolate and move through. And that's what today's mobility class is going to be. It's going to be follow along. We're going to be moving in all directions within the cervical spine and then trying to isolate some smaller movements to really maximize the capacity within that space. Now, if we have tightness, stiffness, it can not only influence the neck itself, but then it can also trickle into the shoulders, into the thoracic spine, and cause symptoms elsewhere in the body. Now, when we move through today's movements, I want to encourage you to move nice and slow, move from a nice, tall, neutral spine, and try to minimize compensation from anywhere else in the body. We're trying to be slow and intentional in the ranges of motion we try to create. So just follow along and try to do as much as you can. If you start to feel any pain, any numbness or tingling, minimize the range of motion that you're moving through. See if that modification helps. If not, wait and move on to the next exercise when you're ready. So as we move through today's video, we're going to be performing each movement for 45 seconds. I have my timer with me, so you'll just be following along and you'll follow along with the cues that I provide. So the first movement that we're going to be doing is cervical retraction. Now I'm in a comfortable seat. You're welcome to perform this exercise laying down on your back or standing up against the wall if you find that having that feedback is helpful for you to achieve this range of motion. So starting in a comfortable seat, finding a nice tall stacked spine, rib cage over pelvis, shoulders over rib cage, trying to find a space where that head is resting evenly above the shoulders. And so 45 seconds, here we go. You're going to think of drawing that chin in toward the throat, lengthening through the back of the spine. Nice and easy, release, chin goes back forward. Now, as we draw that chin back towards the throat, we want to think of keeping those shoulders nice and open and trying not to let them fold forward as we try to find that movement back. So I have a tendency to see that little hug coming forward. So just trying to isolate that movement as best you can. Keeping that gaze forward, chin parallel to the floor. You might feel a little stretch sensation in the back of the neck. That's not a bad thing. Think of keeping and finding a nice tall spine here. Like you had a flat table that you're trying to just scrape your chin nice and gently, drawing back. First 45 seconds is up. Next movement is going to be cervical flexion and extension. Now for this movement, we're going through as much range of motion forward and back as we can, trying to hit that end range of motion that is most comfortable for you. Again, any pinching, numbness, or tingling, we back off that range. So 45 seconds, here we go. Starting with that same tall seated position, draw that chin down towards the chest, lengthen through the back of the neck, and then come on up, drop the head back, gaze to sky, chin lifts, opening through the throat. Come on back down. Now I move nice and slow through these movements. You might be moving a little bit faster or maybe even a little bit slower. Whatever makes the most sense for you, whatever feels comfortable, just being controlled and intentional with the range of motion we achieve. Pausing at that end range where you feel a nice little stretch. But again, trying to keep those shoulders nice and steady, not trying to round or move anywhere else in the spine. 45 seconds is up. Next up is lateral flexion or side bending. 45 seconds again. We're going to try to find and move through a nice neutral spine. And here we go. Shoulders stay down away from the ears, drawing ear to shoulder. And coming back through center, moving over to the other side. Settling into that stretch and trying to keep that gaze, the nose facing forward. So trying not to rotate here, trying to get a true side bend as you move from one space to the next, trying to create as much space from the shoulder, the collarbone, and the jawline. Yeah, moving slow and with control. If anything feels pinchy, we just stay just short of that. All movements should feel comfortable-ish. I mean, they might feel a little stiff, but no pain or numbness. 45 seconds is up. Next up, we have cervical rotation. So we're just going to be turning our head as far as we can from one direction to the next. And we're going to do that for 45 seconds once more. So find that tall spine, shoulders down and away from the ears, keeping that chest open. And here we go. We got 45 seconds. So we're turning as far as we can. Again, thinking of keeping that chin parallel to the floor. So trying not to dip the head back and trying to keep a nice tall axis of the neck. Finding our end range, pausing there for just a second. Then coming on back through center and going to the other side. And as we move through the space, if it does feel a little pinchy, it's okay if it feels snug, but if it's feeling sharp or any sensations are going elsewhere in the body, down to the shoulder or anything like that, then we back off. 45 seconds is up. So those first few movements moved through the entirety of the cervical spine. Now we're going to become a little bit more isolated to the upper cervical spine. Those first two levels are what initiate that flexion extension and that rotation. So it's going to be a smaller range of motion, so I encourage you to move a little bit slower and really tune into the sensations that show up for you, okay? So the first one that we're going to do is Atlanto-occipital flexion extension, okay? So it's going to be that initial movement between the skull and that first vertebrae. So finding that nice tall spine to start, slight draw of the chin toward the throat, and we're going to find that nod 45 seconds. So you're thinking of drawing the chin in toward the throat, little look down toward the floor, and then looking up towards the sky. Let the gaze lead the movement, and then coming back down. So it's super, super small. Everything else stays stationary. You want to think of that skull kind of rocking, a little like a rocking horse. Kind of goes forward and back on the floor. That's kind of what we're doing here, but we're staying as isolated as we can be to that upper portion of the spine. Sometimes I put my fingertips at the base of my skull to tune into that space. 45 seconds is up. Next up is going to be upper cervical rotation. So same thing for this one. It's going to be a much smaller range of motion than when we did the turn of the whole spine. So just make sure that you're tuning into the sensations and not trying to do more than what you need. So starting in that nice tall seated position, we're going to get a slight tuck of the chin towards the throat. So we're finding that retraction, nice tall line at the back of the spine. And then we're going to move through this space. So you're only turning about 45 degrees, keeping that retraction throughout. And it should feel a little restricted once you get to that 45-degree point, because that retraction at the beginning is kind of locking down the lower part of the cervical spine. And as with all the other movements, we are trying to keep those shoulders down and away from the ears, broad across the collarbones, so we don't get any help from anywhere else. Moving nice and slow. 45 seconds is up. And now we're going to move into some targeted mobility. So we're going to do neck CARs. And what CARs stands for is controlled articular rotations. So for this movement, I'm going to facilitate with the use of a hand towel. If you have a stretch strap, that might feel nice, or one of those big resistance bands. But I like the towel because it's long enough, but also short enough so you feel nice and controlled in where you are at each level. So what we're going to do here is we're going to place that towel behind the back of the neck, and then we're going to draw forward on that towel. So we're putting backward to forward pressure on the neck, and then with that pressure, we're going to lean the head up and over as that pressure stays steady, and then come on back. 45 seconds. Here we go. Now I'm starting lower within the cervical spine, and then I'm going to make my way up each round just by a little nudge, keeping about medium pressure throughout. Those hands are going to slightly follow the movement of the chin, the jawline. And hopefully we feel some nice pain-free range of motion here. Maybe the use of towel makes us more comfortable than it was before. Maybe you feel like you're able to go further. But definitely not choking ourselves through the neck, so keep a little width through the hands. And 45 seconds is up. And now the last two movements that we have are going to be focused on a little bit more strength. So I'm going to lay down onto the floor to finish up those last two exercises. So for this next movement, it's going to be a chin tuck to head lift. So now that we're here down onto the floor, you have the feedback from the floor. So you're gently going to draw the chin down towards the throat, gentle press to the back of the skull into the floor. Once you have that nice chin tuck, that retraction, you're going to try to keep that and lift the head up for 3, 2, 1. Lower down, 45 seconds. Here we go. Chin tuck and lift. 3, 2, 1. We lower. Feel free to reset each round if you'd like. Find that chin tuck, establish that support, and then we lift for 3, 2, 1. Lower down. We lift for 3, 2, 1. Lower. 3, 2, 1. Chest should stay relaxed. Shoulders are down onto the floor. Try not to curl them up. Don't worry about how far your range of motion is. Taking time to move through each step. 45 seconds is up. So next up we have lateral flexion or side bending. So once I'm on my side, I'm on my right hand side to start. I want that shoulder right underneath me so I have space between ear and shoulder. And then with a nice long spine, I drop my head down towards the floor. Depending on which side feels a little bit more restrictive or a little bit tighter, I already feel a nice stretch on my left hand side. That's okay. So starting from this position, I'm going to draw the left side of my head up towards the sky, find that nice neutral spine, and then I lower down nice and slow. 45 seconds. Here we go. Come up to neutral, and then lower down. So trying to make this a true side bend. If it helps to give yourself a little bit of a mirror for some feedback, that might be helpful. But we want to make it a true side bend versus a rotation. Pause on that neutral space before lowering back down. Shoulders relaxed. I'm not using my hands to push me up. I know it might look like that just where they are in space, but all the effort is in those lateral flexors. Head is in line with the shoulders, in line with the torso. 45 seconds is up. Let's switch to the other side. We got our last exercise here, so we're coming down onto that left-hand side, shoulders down and away from the ears. So a little push of that left arm into the floor so that we're not collapsing entirely onto that left side. Drop that left ear down towards the floor so that top little corner of the head might be touching the floor. Feel that length on the right-hand side and then lift up to neutral. Lower it back down. 45 seconds, here we go. So trying not to use anywhere else in our body. I had a little bit of rotation with that one. So let's get back on track here. I was looking down to my lower body as I was thinking about cueing to stay relaxed and supported within that space. With all of these movements, we're trying to isolate to the head and neck so that we can truly move through that space and not let other areas of the body show up instead. We really want to isolate that work to get the most out of it. 45 seconds is up. So those are all of the movements that we are going to be performing today. So if you have any comments or questions about what showed up for you, please feel free to leave those below. And if there are any requests for some videos you'd like to see in the future, we'd love to hear from you. I hope you all have an awesome rest of your day.